Okay, so I have my cowl glued on the mask. This is obviously a Chewie mask, so same process for both the Chewie and the Tarful. I've got my cowl all latched. I've got it glued on. Those I hopefully went over in another video. I'm making this video before I'm doing that one, so a little out of order on my end. But I've got my cowl glued on, and just used CA glue and some zip kicker to get it on there. It's nice and secure. The next step in the process is to start putting hair up to the top middle of this mask. Coming over here, some of the tools that I'm going to be using here. I think I've got everything here. What I've got in front of me here is hair that's 16 inches long. And I was using this to latch hook the back cowl because they split in half to become 8-inch pieces of hair, and I've liked the look of the 8-inch. So some of them you latch lopsided, one side, so some of them might be 8, some of them might be 9, or like that. But I've got some 16-inch hair now. I don't want to be gluing on 16-inch hair onto the part that I'm doing now. It'll be too long and it'll hang. If I did 16 inches, it would hang, all the way down, and it would overlap all of this stuff. Because right here I have 8-inch hair all the way up, and so you can really just see until about this last strand of hair comes to about here. And so if what I want to do is I want to hang 8 or 9-inch hair down over this. So really you're not going to see any of this hair here as this sort of cascades its way up. So what I'm going to do is I just had some of this 16-inch hair left over that I was using on the cowl, and so what I'm going to do now is cut it essentially in half. I probably will not cut it in half because I want it to be 9 inches. If I cut 16 in half, I'm going to get 8 inches, and I kind of want to err on the side of 9 inches as opposed to 8. I can always go in when I'm all done and get the thinning shears out and kind of make sure it's blended and looking smooth and nice, but I will go over that in a later video. Some tools that I have going here: I've got some thinning shears. I would err on the side of getting some medium to more expensive ones. These are Oster brand. They weren't super expensive. I want to say they were like 30 bucks. There were definitely cheaper ones though, and these ones have been really good to me. Try to get one with as many of the teeth as you possibly can, as opposed to the ones that take out bigger chunks. So lots of teeth. Oster brand I like. There's plenty of different types of thinning shears. I got them at Sally Beauty Supply, I think. You can get them on Amazon, I'm sure. Obviously using this to gauge my length of hair. And then I'm going to be using, if I'm gluing onto the fiberglass, I'm just using simple old silicone caulking that I got at, I think, Home Depot or Lowe's, and a caulking gun. And I'll go over the process for applying the hair. But for starters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this whole table here with hair that's ready to go on, and I'll show you a video of that and kind of show you how I sort of try to streamline that process and get as much hair on as I can quickly. Otherwise it can become somewhat of a time experience. But anyway, step one of putting the hair on after you've gotten the cowl on is I'm just going to try to hair up to the middle of this thing, and then I'll probably take a break because it gets a little bit, I don't know, monotonous. So yeah, all right, thanks. Okay, so I took that 16-inch lock of hair, bundle, more like a bundle, I guess, and I cut it down. You can see right here, it's not about 9 inches, a little over 9 inches. If you can kind of see, there's a better angle. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do 9 inches all the way up to this middle line that I've got dashed here. And I just kind of did a little reminder. I don't do this on every mask, but just kind of doing this for the tutorial, and it might help you just to kind of remember you're working with 9-inch pieces. One of the things I didn't talk about in the last video that is, it's important, but it can also be fixed at the end, is I like to use the ends of these bundles. Here's an example that I cut off. So this is a bundle of the Cyberlocks dark gunmetal gray. And this is the middle of it here, and then it hangs 24 inches on each side. The end of this, though, it's kind of already blended down here. You know, it's sort of that natural look where some hairs are longer than others, as opposed to a freshly cut section, which the other side of this came from that over there, and it's been cut, and so it's just not as blended because I just cut it with some scissors. So what I like to try and do is I like to use the ends of these. I also do use the middle sections, and then what I'll do is I will just use the thinning shears on the end of it, and I'll make another quick video to describe that again, give you the visual there. But just to start off, I like to just cut, you know, my 9-inch slices off the ends of these, and then I'll go back and I'll use the middle sections later because they take just a sliver more work, where I basically make the clean cut ends kind of look ratty like the ends do here, because you want the whole thing to kind of look blended together. You don't want to see like lines in your hair. So I'll make a video later on to give you better visuals of what I'm talking about. Anyway, 9-inch hair. Next video I'm going to have 9-inch hair locks all lined up and ready to go, be glued on that mask, and then I'll walk you guys through that. So you can see I just cut off the other end of this bundle of hair that I was showing you, and you can see it sitting right here. So these are basically the two ends that went on this bundle of hair. Now I'm going to basically cut off. You can see how straight that line is there with the cut, because I was just cutting with, you know, standard scissors. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut off some more 9-inch sections and line them up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those thinning shears as I'm applying it to give it that more natural tail end look. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm taking those bundles and I'm basically just making little smaller bundles that I'm going to kind of glue on, and I'm just sort of lining them up on the table. But you can kind of see, I want to just kind of show the technique I'm using. I use a similar technique when I'm grabbing hair to latch hook. When I'm doing the gluing, though, I grab a lot more hair. I don't know, I guess maybe there's 50 hairs in there, maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100. I don't know, I've never counted them, but you can see it's a waft about this size. I'll give you some different views of it in the next little short video, but I'm basically just lining them up over here, and I'm gonna have a table full of these that I can just go grab and glue on as I do later. But I kind of wanted to just show you the technique that I'm doing here. So I basically just pinch a good amount of hair, and then I kind of like to just pet it so that it's easier to grab later. And then when I'm grabbing, and this is kind of a key part, is when I'm grabbing, when I want to pull away just the stuff that I'm pinching, I kind of put my hand flat down on the rest of it and then just sort of pull away. I use the same method when I'm latch hooking, like I said earlier, but I just I'm pinching a lot less hair right now. I'm doing more because I'm just gluing it on faster. The good news is gluing on hair is much quicker than latch hooking the hair. Latch hooking the back cowl is probably the most lengthy part of the whole mask construction. But anyway, that's the process, the technique I use for creating the smaller bundles. You can kind of see over here, I'm just lining them up. And I'm going to do that all the way down my table, and then I'll do a whole nother row here, and then I'll probably have to do that all over again in order to get up to that spot on the mask that I had labeled. And so right now I've got essentially one 48-inch or almost one 48-inch bundle of Cyberlocks on the table right now. I've got to break it up into these bundles, but I'm guessing it'll probably, if I remember right, it's been a while since I haired one, but on Chewy it'll probably take me, I think, almost three bundles of hair just to get to the point where I have to start using Silpoxy on the silicone. And that is it for that video. So I took one of these bundles, the other ending, this being the other ending, and that's how many smaller bundles that I got out of it. So just to kind of give you an idea, just counting them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably like 15 more, so 25. I got, you know, roughly, I'm guessing 40 to 50 bundles out of that, just one ending on that thing. So I'm going to basically do the other half of this table here. I'll move these to somewhere else, and then I'm going to do this one. And then I'll have a whole table full of these bundles, and then I'll come back and do a video of actually gluing it on. So I've got all my bundles laid out, basically 2 9-inch larger bundles that came from the pack, and I've got them all laid out. Now all of these bundles are the ends, so I'm not going to have to use the thinning shears on them to get that natural end look. I'm basically just going to be grabbing one of these at a time, gluing them on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this caulking gun and that silicone to sort of lay a line of glue down here, and then I'm going to just grab these bundles one at a time and put them on there and kind of just make sure that the glue is spread out and making contact with each of the hairs, and then I'm kind of just go, you know, go like one small section, and I'll kind of just go all the way around, and then the next one up I'll kind of stagger them in between as I do that. Keep in mind, this is the Chewie mask in this video, so if you're working on Tarful, the dreadlocks are definitely going to need to be glued on. Like you'll locate where the dreadlocks will go, and then you'll be gluing the dreadlocks on. More if you do it the way I did it, then you'll be gluing the dreadlocks on sort of as you do this process. And I'll hopefully do another video where we talk about that. So, but if you're doing a Chewie kit or a Chewie mask, this is how I put the hair on. All right. Okay. Wait for the video to stop wobbling here. Okay, so I got my glue gun with my silicone caulking, and I'm basically just going to go, and I'm going to actually start, I'm going to do a line of glue that's basically lines up with the edge, and I'm just going to put it down. Hopefully you can see that on the video. I'm going to do about a 5 or 6 inch section here. Okay, I'm going to cap this thing, hang it up, almost out of silicone there, and then I'm going to grab my first thing of hair. And one thing I like to do, just because I want this end to be the end that's hanging down here because it's more natural looking, but I want the part that I glue on to be pretty cleaned up. So what I'll do is I'll just cut off just a little bit there, because I don't want like some long hairs, some short hairs. And of course I'm lefty, so basically I have this end that I'm going to glue on, and I'm just cutting it off, cleaning it up. That way when I glue, the part that I glue doesn't have some long hairs and some not long hairs. And I'm basically just going to set it down on top of the glue with about, I don't know, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of hair that's hanging over it. And I'm just kind of pushing down and moving it up, making sure that the glue is making contact with the hairs. It's okay if some hairs kind of come loose and come out of the bundle, but I'm just kind of holding it down with some resistance and gluing it on. And it usually stays really good like that, depending on how straight the hair is that you have. So again, another bundle, just kind of cleaning up the end. All I did was just sort of trim the end off, just so that it gets it, you know, uniform looking. You can see that. And then I kind of go to the next little spot of glue that I have. If for some reason I don't have enough glue in that area, I'll just kind of go back over to my line of glue, and I'll just kind of wipe a little more of that over. I suppose with each line of glue I run, I get, I don't know, maybe 5 bundles. Again, trimming the top of it. laying it down and just kind of moving that glue through it. So I've got about 1/2 inch, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch of actual hair of those hairs that are actually glued down. This Cyberlock's hair is super curvy. It has a lot of volume to it, so it's a little different than hairs that I've worked with in the past that are not quite as volumey. So I don't know if that makes sense to you hair people, but yeah, so I'm just kind of working my way around using that glue up. The silicone caulking that I'm using, I don't know, it takes 10 or 15 minutes to set up pretty good. Probably in a half an hour, I could probably even brush it and not have it come out, or at least give it a light brush. And after it's fully cured in a couple hours, I guess, certainly overnight, then I can really brush it. And any loose hairs that didn't get contacted with the glue will just come right out, and everything else will just stay there. So you can kind of see how I've got those bundles. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 6 of them. And I'm just going to keep on going around. Now, if you're doing a tarful mask, you will have already located where those dreads are going to go, how they're going to hang after they get glued in that area. But basically, you're going to be doing a similar process with the dread. It's going to require a lot more glue to get it to stick on there and everything, but you're going to glue the end of the dread with a whole bunch of glue, a big glob of glue, and then you're basically just going to be gluing the dreads in and around these little swatches that you're gluing to the top of the tarful head. So you'll use a lot less of these on tarful, and you'll be gluing down the dreadlocks, which will take up a lot of the volume of the top of that head. And then you'll essentially just be gluing on these smaller bundles so that it sort of hides where the dread is glued on, making it look like the dread's just made with the existing, hair that was on the head. Yeah, so I'm gonna probably make another video of that whole process right there, and then I'll do another video of the next lineup where I'm kind of staggering them in between, and you can kind of start to see how it's all blended in, and how when in the final product you don't see any of this mess here that's glued. It's just a good looking hair on the outside. So yeah, I'll stop this video, and then I'm just going to keep on rocking this. Next video I'll make will be with the staggered. So I'm just starting the other side here. One thing I wanted to mention was that when I am actually applying the hair, so again, trim the top edge. When I'm applying it, that glue smears up a ways, and it's totally fine. It's all going to get overlapped. Obviously, you don't want to waste a bunch of glue, but if you end up, having glue streaks because you maybe used a little too much glue when you put your line down or whatever, then that's totally fine. Don't worry about that. It all gets covered up by the tiers of hair, I guess you could say they are. Hopefully the hair you're using is, I don't know, easier to work with than this hair. This Cyberlock stuff. I'm having to use it because I'm matching some suits that people already have made, and it was made with this kind of hair. So let's see, I don't even know if you guys can see that, but of course I'm a lefty, so I'm probably in the way here, but I'm just doing the same process that I showed in that last video. And yeah, so I got one, I call it just one line of hair glued on there. I might have gotten a little bit high with my glue. That's like a full inch right there of glued down hair. I don't want to get too crazy with that because then the hair gets too short, but it'll all be fine. Also, I'm a little bit thin through here. You can see some kind of open spots here, especially here and a little bit over here. It'll all get covered up, so I'm not worried about that, but I might use, I might put a little bit more hair there, or this isn't cured yet, so I mean, I could literally just grab another bundle and put it there in that open spot. It wouldn't hurt to just do that. You can kind of see. And if for some reason it's not enough glue there anymore, which in this case I think there is enough glue, but you just kind of fill it in. All these extra hairs here, usually I hate, it bugs me that they're all up there. It all gets covered up. Again, that's just this hair that I'm using. It's just, I don't know. I'm just not as happy with it as I've been with other hairs that I've gotten from other places. Anyway, I've got, I don't know, roughly 15 to 18 little swatches on there right now. I'm gonna basically do the same exact thing that I just did, except I'm gonna try to stagger them between the existing ones, and hopefully I'll make a video showing you that. Okay, so got the next line of glue on there. You can see it. You can see how I kind of overlapped it a little bit. So I put the line of glue that was basically on top of the existing hair, and I'm just kind of going back, snipping off the part that I'm gluing, just snipping off maybe a 1/4 inch of it, just to kind of even out that edge. And then I'm just gonna see if I can show this to you here. And then I'm just gonna start applying it staggered, hopefully between the hair that I have on that first line of hair. And you'll learn that, like, as you do this, you can kind of push the hair around. Once it gets sort of wetted with the silicone, you can kind of push it around so that it's not all congregating in one spot. As I get closer, I'll try to show you a more close-up video of what I'm doing. But I got all this hair on the table, and I'm kind of slowly moving the mask down to get closer to the hair as I go. I got this little area here on the edge that I'm gonna just be careful. Like, if you have silicone in your gloves, you know, don't go touching the silicone mask. Had that happen before, where I accidentally, you know, grab the front of it to move it around or something, and it you know, actually get a silicone fingerprint on the nose or on the lips or something. And it makes it hard to disappear. This stuff does not stick to the EcoFlex. That's why you got to get Silpoxy, is because Silpoxy will actually stick to it, and that's why you got to switch to Silpoxy when you start gluing hair onto the actual face, because this stuff won't work. But it works really good for gluing to the fiberglass. Got a couple of stragglers there, got stuck to my glove, so I'm just gonna get those out of the way. This is definitely a messy part of this. Just be careful. I like to do, you know, a line that's you know, kind of halfway around the mask, but if I do more than that and I get pulled away from it for any length of time, then I'm going to come back and that line's going to be glued there, and I'm going to have to get an X-Acto knife out to kind of peel it off. I've done that before. I'm going to recommend it. Don't do that. So just kind of go in small sections. Let's see if I can move this closer so you guys can get a better look. Clearly I'm new to the tutorial making process. Alright, let's see. Okay. So I'll just clip that top part. So again, clipping the top. A couple of spots there that are just sort of need some more hair. Just kind of making sure to securely hold down the hair with this hand that's holding the hair as I sort of push that hair away. So kind of get a look there at what I see. It looks messy, but trust me, it starts looking better and better. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just let this video roll and do some more. Okay, I'm running out of silicone in this batch. Usually one of these tubes is plenty to get me through one mask and then some. So if you're wondering about how much you need to buy, these are super affordable too. I can't even remember, but I think it's $5 or $6 or something for a tube of that. So that caulking. Okay, clipping the top, and I'm just gonna start here this time. Notice as I get closer to that line, I'm kind of angling this hair. I want this hair to flow in a sort of natural way. So what I'm doing is I'm slowly starting to kind of angle that hair towards the front, because when I get up to the top, you know, I want all of that hair to be going back this opposite direction towards the back of the head. So on these sides right here, that hair, you know, like when I get to this spot here, I want to be able to start really angling this hair and gluing it down like this. Hopefully that's making sense. But anyway, I'm just staggering these down. If they're perfectly staggered, it doesn't matter if they're, you know, don't have to be perfectly staggered. There's so much hair that goes on this, and it all gets covered up and overlapped. Just kind of making a concerted attempt to try and stagger this stuff. But you can kind of see here. I'm just working my way around. I need, like, in the Stan Winston videos, they have, like, you know, multiple videos that cover all these different angles, so I don't have that. But hopefully this is helpful. I'm kind of counting on people, you know, if there's something that I didn't put in the video that people are wanting to see, you know, I'm kind of counting on people to watch them and then say, hey, you know, didn't get a good look at this, or can you show this again? But it would be great to be able to do that. So I'm basically done with the second line of staggered hair. There's a couple of little spots that I just want to fill in. It's really nice when you have bundles that are varying sizes, because if you have like a big area that you need to fill in that kind of got missed, then you can go grab the bigger one. If it's a little tiny area, you know, like right here, maybe I could use a little tiny space right, let's see, like right in there, you know, so I could grab a little small one and just put it there. I'm just gonna fill it in when I do the next line. So I've got 2 full lines on here. I don't know, probably close to 30 little bundles of hair. And I'm gonna let that set up for probably at least 25 minutes. I could keep going, I usually do, but this hair is a little messier than the normal hair I'm working on, and so what I want to do is kind of let it cure and then move it around a little bit and see how much of that hair is coming out. But that's the start of this process. I will probably do the next video. You'll probably see the whole thing up to that line done. As I get closer and closer, I'll start angling in. I might do a little video just showing more of that angle. You can see it's not angled much here, so I really need to start kind of bending that hair in as I glue it, because by the time I get to this line, I want all this hair, or almost all of this hair, to be, the edge to be touching that line. You can see right now it's like this, and it needs to be like that. Well, not yet, but eventually. I keep saying that I'm gonna just move ahead and then make a video showing you the, you know, to the next step, but I don't know. I keep shooting this video. Maybe you'll get something out of it. Starting on that third line right now. Boy, I got a messy bundle of hair right there. You can see my finger is pretty messy right now, so just kind of carefully grabbing new bundles with the fingers that I have that aren't all glued, and I'm just trimming off some of that messiness at the top. Doesn't really matter like which side of the glue line you start with. You just need to use all the glue, and if you have a lot of excess, I like to just wipe it on the top because it all gets covered up later. Just kind of going through, gluing the ends down. think one of the things you get from these videos is you get a sense for, oh, well, how much hair do I glue down? How much glue do I use? You know, I suppose there's other methods for doing this. This is just how I've done it. And to be honest with you, I don't really know. I don't remember seeing any videos showing anyone doing this before. So I can't really say how I learned how to do this. I don't really remember anymore, like if I saw someone do this and then thought, oh, you know, I'm going to adjust it this way, or I'm going to try this. I just think I just started doing it. Usually takes me about an hour or so to get up to this line here, maybe a little longer. Anyway, I'm on like the third line here. And I'm going to stop the video because it probably is getting pretty long. But I'm going to do a couple more lines and I'll come back. Okay, so I did at least another full line since the last video. Anyway, you can see I'm getting closer to that dashed line that I have on top of the Chewy head. And so what that means a couple of different things. One, it means I'm just kind of working my way up. But two, it means that I'm going to be laying down less glue. And I guess it also means I'm just going to start having less of a glue line. And, you know, it's sort of because I want to just work my way to this line. You can see on both sides, you know, if I go over the line a little bit, it's no big deal. But you can see a lot of that messy stuff is just all getting covered up by hair. And if I move this away, you can kind of start seeing just the effect of how it has blended in with the cowl. Now keep in mind, I haven't brushed this or anything. This is just still curing. But you can really see how it all kind of blends together, so that when you're, you know, have the mask on, people aren't seeing, oh, look, there's a back cowl there. It all just kind of blends in together and it overlaps. And a lot of that has to do with all of this hair being the same length. If the hair on that I'm gluing down was super long, then you would clearly see that hair is hanging over the shorter hair on the cowl. So it's important that you get the length correct. And on the cowl, it was 16-inch pieces latch hooked in half to roughly the 8, 9, 10-inch range. And then over here, I'm cutting them to 9 inches. I trim a little bit off before I glue them on, just to clean up that glued edge. And then I'm left with, you know, that 8 to 9 inch range that I've glued on. Maybe, I don't know, 7.5 to 8.5 inch range. So it all kind of blends together. Keep in mind that at the end of this whole process, you'll be able to come in with the thinning shears. If you see, like, let's say you see a little line back here, you'll be able to come in with the thinning shears and kind of just, you know, spend some time trying to blend it so that one hairline, so that you can take out any lines you have in the hair. But anyway, I'm gonna start gluing this up here to this line, and then I'll come back and show that. One thing I probably should have mentioned much earlier on is that what I have this mask on. Essentially, this is just a wood platform, and I've got a foam head on it, and it's basically just sitting on there. It's absolutely awesome for making these masks. And I just made this one, you know, bought some heavy particle board so that it's weighed down at the bottom, some wood dowels, drilled a hole, glued it in, put the foam head on. I've got several of these because sometimes I have several masks going at once. The part I really like about this is sometimes when you get to the top of the head here, it's nice to be able to tilt that mask, you know, so that you can get to certain areas better. So it's like, you know, you can tilt it like this, or when you get to the forehead, it's nice to be able to move that mask in such a way that you can get to that area to glue this area up here. So yeah, you're gonna want to make something like this. I think it'll make your world much easier. It certainly can be done elsewhere, and I've kind of developed a really good system here in my shop, but it would behoove you to make one of these platforms or something similar where you can manipulate the mask and move it around into the position that you need to move it into. Okay, so I have used all of the hair that I had lined up there on the table. This right here is just the little trimmings I got from just straightening the edges of each bundle. So you can see this was messy. I kind of scooped it up into a pile, but you can see that, you know, little pieces of hair get everywhere, so it's probably a good idea to have a safe place to do this. But you can kind of see how we're looking right now. I need to glue this area down and put some hair there. I just kind of ran out of those little wefts that I had prepared. And there's a couple little thin spots. I did go past that line a little bit, which is totally fine. It was just sort of a guide. But this is how we're looking now. We're about halfway up on the top of the head. This particular hair I'm using is, like I mentioned before, it's got a lot of volume, a lot of wrinkles in it and stuff, so it kind of just gets poofier. And because of that, it just has more coverage. So I don't think I'm having to use as much hair as I might normally use with some of the other stuff that I like. But you're starting to get a feel for the back of Chewie's head shape, and you really can't see where the hair from the cowl versus where the hair from the top of the head that's glued on is starting and stopping. I guess I can, but once this gets brushed and stuff, it's still curing, but I can kind of shape it with my hands, and you can get a sense for this look that we're getting. My dome is kind of sagging down, but that's the look. Anyway, this is the Chewie kit, but you should be, you know, similar with Tarful. With Tarful, most of your dreads will be glued on by now. So what that's going to mean is that there's a lot less of gluing these little swatches, and the dreads will be taking up a lot of room. You'll still have a dread or two. I think you'll probably have a dread that goes about here, and then you'll have that one big center dread that goes up towards the front. But aside from that, all your dreads will be pretty much on. And so then we'll move on to the next step. The next step is going to be where we start using some silpoxy. And what we're going to do is we're going to start gluing some of that gray hair down here, down to about the mouth line. And we'll have to use silpoxy to get it to stick to the silicone. And then we'll go back to our silicone caulking for doing this. But we're going to just continue. For Chewie, we'll just continue this gray all the way up. Believe it or not, most of Chewie is gray, so it's just I don't know, probably 75-80% of Chewie is gray. It's just that brown that you see on the face and under the mouth. But yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. Really happy, looking good so far. All right, so I'm basically, I got that other sideburn done. I didn't go up quite as far with it. It was a little bit more orderly and it looks a little cleaner. I'm not worried about the other side not being quite as clean. They look fine. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to add another, I don't know, inch and a half to my hair glued line, if you will, to the dome using my silicone caulk. And then I'll just, like I said, I'll kind of alternate back and forth between the silpoxy sideburns, kind of trying to keep a uniform line, so to speak, uniform hairline, all the way up until I kind of gradually bring that gray line to where this dotted line is. Yeah, I think that should make sense. All right, so I've now haired basically 2 full batches of hair that I had on my table. All that's gone. It's on the mask now. You can kind of see where my stopping point is going to be at here. But I haven't done any more on the sideburns, but I did get quite a bit further up the forehead. So some of this glue is still curing, but you can kind of get a look for where we're at. Pretty the lion's mane effect. But this is how every mask I've done has taken a look to. So obviously, if you're doing a Tarful, then you're just going to continue on, you know, with all of the same colored hair until you get to like the very edges, and then you'll blend in some of that blonde color. But in terms of Chewie, we still have more gray to do. We'll have more on the sideburns to do, about double the current amount. And then we'll have gray basically all the way to the eyebrow. The glue line will go all the way to the eyebrow. I got it dotted off over here. It actually might even be a little bit closer. I need to change the dots need to go a little bit further on this side. But you can see where we're at. That's so I used a pack and a quarter of hair on the cowl, and I used basically the rest of that 3/4 pack to get where I'm at right now. This particular hair that I'm using has, like I'd mentioned before, it has a lot of volume. So I'm finding out that it's just covering more ground than some of the other hair that I've used that's been more straight. It's not as on there as densely, but it seems to be doing the work, doing the trick. So we'll see how it goes. From here, I probably will start making the hair longer as I go from here. I'll probably talk about that in the next video, but I'm gonna probably go like 10 to 11 inch hair as I go further down, because I want that hair to be able to comb back and land down here, especially in the middle. I'll probably use longer hair in the middle. On the sides, I might stay short and then just see kind of how it looks. But I want to err on the side of longer. I can always come back in when all is said and done and do some trimming and thinning out. But once I glue on short hair, I can't grow it longer. So I want to err on the side of length. Also, you can see how the sideburn hair has now hidden the hardware, the edge of the mask, and it will hide, you know, everything else as well once we get all the brown hair on. But anyway, I'll come back later tonight and probably finish up the gray work on this so that we can see a finished product in terms of Chewie with his gray mane, I call it. All right, I think that's it for now. Okay, so it is the next morning. All of this stuff is dried, and I can, you know, pull on it and it's not going anywhere. All this silicone is completely cured, as well as the Silpoxy here. And this is kind of what I'm left with here. I need to put some more gray on. And basically what I want to do is just kind of start filling in the low spots. So I'll probably start here. And one of the things I just wanted to kind of point out, I don't think it's a big deal, but it's worth noting, is that these areas that sort of are betweener spots between the silicone and the fiberglass, I'm going to use Silpoxy for that. You can use Silpoxy anywhere on it, but I just sort of like, if in doubt, if it's going to be touching the silicone EcoFlex, then I like to use the Silpoxy. The other thing too that I maybe mentioned yesterday, but I want to make sure and mention it, is that the Silpoxy, it really makes this silicone much more rigid than it is. It comes to you very flexible, very much like a, you know, a skin material would be, or a material made to emulate skin would be expected to move. But when you put the Silpoxy on top of it, it does get much more rigid. And I'm sure I'll talk more about this in later videos, but you don't want to be using Silpoxy all the way up on this cheek. And so in terms of, I may do one more level of gray hair here, but I need this area to flex, and I don't want it getting too rigid. So I'm going to be careful not to be spreading Silpoxy on this cheek area. I might put some on the inside to reinforce the cheek that I think might be too thin or something like that, or right inside of the mask in this area here, but obviously on the inside. I may do that just to kind of keep some of that long-term wear and tear happening that sometimes happens in the cheek, although I haven't seen it in any of my masks. Anyway, the Silpoxy makes the silicone much more rigid. I can just feel right here in this spot where it's glued that it has so much less reflexivity than the areas that are not glued. So two things for this little section of the video. One, I'm going to use Silpoxy for these between areas just to be safe, because I would hate to use my normal silicone caulking and then, you know, have it not sticking to half of that or some of the part that's on the EcoFlex. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the lower areas, you know, then I'm going to come up around here. I have basically the same thing to do over here. I'm going to be making sure to angle this hair essentially it's going to be angled in towards the eyes. So I'm going to be basically, I need to kind of redot a line. As I get up closer to the eyes, this stuff doesn't need to flex, so I can glue stuff all the way up to about here. And I'll show you the finalized look at that after I get it glued on. And then I'll use caulking here for a couple more rows, and then I'll get to a point where I'm just using the Silpoxy there as I get closer up the brow. But I wanted to cover a couple of those points. All right, so there's the one side low, or I should say one low spot filled. You can see I did put one more spot here, but I don't really want to go much lower. I may put one here just to kind of make this sort of a gradual, because there's a little bit of a dip right here. And so I'll probably put one more piece right here, or one more weft of hair. You see, I'm only just working with a little bit right now because I'm just kind of filling some of these spaces in. I'm only on my third pack of hair right now, so I'm pretty sure that I just started the third pack. You can see it over there. And I just cut the end of it off. That's it right here, all spread out. This is the third pack of hair I've used in terms of the gray. So if you're doing a Chewy, I think that I'm gonna be able to do all the hair, at least with the dark gunmetal gray. It's somewhere between 3 and 4 packs of hair to get all the gray work done on the mask. Tarful's a lot more hair for the mask because of the dreadlocks. It's 1 to 2 packs of hair per dreadlock, and there's 10 of them, so it's much more hair. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to this other side now. I'm gonna fill in this space and kind of do the same thing I did on the other side, just kind of start getting an arc like this. But one thing I want to point out is something I mentioned earlier, is that the gray really does go up really close to the eye. Now when I go in to do my hair punching, which I'll have another video on, I'm going to be punching right through these areas where I've glued. But before I get to that, we'll do some other stuff, but because the punching essentially comes last. So anyway, next step is I'm going to come over here, I'm going to fill that area in with gray, and then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to use longer hairs, like 10, 11 inches in this middle area here. I'll probably use some 9-inch again on the outside, but in the middle I want longer hairs that kind of swoop back over past that midpoint of his head. There's a little bit of a change there, and I'll do another video to be a reminder of that. Here's a good example. I'm starting to fill in that low area here, and I just wanted to kind of show, I've got some Silpoxy down, probably enough for maybe two locks of hair, 2 of those to go down in this space that's kind of that between space there. And I'll do the same thing along on that whole edge. It's just like, if in doubt, I'll just use the Silpoxy. Now I do want to conserve the Silpoxy. This wasn't a new tube, but I'm kind of in that halfway range in terms of what's left of it. And I'm still going to be using Silpoxy on most of that under chin there. Most of the rest of the mask will get punched after I get this section here done. We'll have Silpoxy, and then the bottom area, which I'll go over in another video. But I wanted to show just a visual of that between space and what I'm doing there. Just using the same technique, but I've just basically, got a little bit of Silpoxy in that space. Okay, so I've got both sides covered up. Now I need to go back to the middle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fill in this space here with some more 9-inch hair, and the same thing over here, just because I have a little bit of 9-inch stuff left. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use like maybe there's maybe a 2-inch space here in the middle that I'm going to start using longer hair. You can also see how, as I was doing this curve here, I'm starting to kind of angle it in towards the eye. And so by the time I get to the top of the brow, I want to be kind of going directly down towards the eyes and towards the nose. So that angling of the hair is important, and it's really subtle along the way. So you just got to kind of go slow and check the angle. And then one thing I've learned to do is when I glue the hair, sometimes if I'm not sure if I've got the angle of the hair right, then I will put him back down, and then I'll see if that hair is falling the way that I want it to fall. It doesn't have to be perfect. You do have some ability to manipulate it with heat, which I'll show you later, with a blow dryer and a brush. So there's some play with it, but it's just nice if you can get it angled correctly as you glue it on. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna hit up this middle part here and probably get most of this brow done, and then the gray should be done at that point. So yeah. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and filled in. I used those last couple of wefts of hair to put them up there. I kind of had a little low spot right here, and I just didn't have enough hair prepped and ready. You want to try to have everything you need to get glued down, prepped and ready. That way you don't end up with extra glue. This isn't any problem though. I've got that's not any huge amount. If I needed to, I could just wipe some of it off, and it would waste it. This is just the cheap silicone caulking, so I'm not worried about that. And then I've got my this is the third pack of hair, which I just used the end over here. You can see this end is still totally intact, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a larger piece of this to start working on that middle section, because I want that hair in the middle of Chewie's head. It kind of comes back a little further, like the hairs that are more towards the front of the brow. They're a little bit longer in a lot of the movies, especially in that middle area. When you use the long hairs out here, they have a tendency to fall down. The weight of them falls down, and I'll show that video later after we stand this guy up, when all the silicone is cured and all the glue is cured. But gonna use long hairs in the middle. I'm gonna probably cut him 11 inches, and then if I decide they're too long after he's basically all haired, then I'll just come in with the thinning shears and thin it out to the length that I need it to be. I'll be making a video of all that, but right now the big thing is getting the hair angled correctly, and then doing a little bit of a longer hair in the middle, probably middle to 2 to 3 inches, probably more like 2 inches, just as you move in towards the nose from this point here. But this is how we're looking right now. Stand him up so you can see. He's looking pretty lion's mane here, so that's the way every mask I've done is look. This one's a little poofier, I guess, just because this hair, using this hair for the first time to match a suit made by Evil Chimp, and it just seems like it has more volume and more crinkle to it. So I'm gonna probably put some heat on it and see if I can get it to kind of straighten out just a little bit to take some of that volume out. But he's looking good. I think I'll be able to make it work. For some reason too, and this is sort of a side note, this hair from Cyberlocks, for some reason it has a lot of static. When I brush it, it gets real staticky and poofy, like like when you get off the plane in Florida or something. But so yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. None of the other hair that I've worked with has that issue. I usually use this stuff and I really like it. I've never ever had that issue with hair before, but when I brush this, man, it just gets real staticky. So I'm hoping I can find a way to get rid of that, but I have no idea what that's all about, so I'll have to look into it. Anyway, long hair is going in the middle, and then that'll be the next step. Okay, so I've got most of that area on the fiberglass part of the forehead all covered up. And I'm going to basically go in with the Silpoxy now, and I'm just going to kind of cover up this betweener space right here, and then just start layering that Silpoxy and the hair, I should say, layering the hair all the way up to where you see this dotted line. I've only got a couple of dots in there. I need to kind of do it, but I'm gonna have gray hair glued down all the way to about this point here on the forehead, and about just barely over those where those dots are on this side, and then there's no dots over here, but you can see how that's going to look, and then I'll show you guys the final project. But I'm just using the Silpoxy from here on out to adhere it to the EcoFlex. And then another look at the sides, just kind of so you can see where I'm at. In terms of the hair angles, you can see how I'm kind of starting to just slowly angle this hair in this way. And so right here, this angle will be here, and then I'm just going to slowly kind of be angling it in more this way as I do it, because all this hair here is just going to go straight that way. All right, so I've got the Silpoxy on there. I just want to show you a quick picture of what I'm doing there. but I got to get working quick. I did a little bit bigger of a line of Silpoxy than I wanted to and start setting up fairly quick. So I'm going to start putting hair on. I'll show you guys the after. Okay, so I went ahead and filled in that space on the forehead, and I've got that all on. It's just fresh curing, still curing Silpoxy. So, but you can kind of see where I'm at here. It's covered up a lot of that ugliness, and then most of the work, all the work from here forward is going to be all with the brown hair. So I just wanted to kind of show you a thing. I'll see if I can kind of tip this up. It's going to have definitely the lion's mane thing going on. And I don't want the hair falling all over yet until it's cured. But you can see it's starting to get like some of that more big shape. What I need to do is I need to get the blow dryer out and just kind of do some brushing as I put some heat on the hair to try and take some of the volume out. But you can see that he's starting to get some of that bulkiness to his shape in terms of the hairline on the top. And you can kind of get a look at the back too, where we're at. Again, it hasn't been brushed out or anything, so I get him to hold still here. But this is kind of where I'm at this point. This is basically all of the gray mane on Chewy. So I can turn him around so you get a good look. This is what you're shooting for when you're doing a Chewy. Tarfle's more difficult with the dreads, but with respect to you're not having to do all the color changes on the face like you do on Chewy, so it's just a little bit different. This being a Chewy, it's this is kind of what the gray looks like, and then I kind of start doing the brown. What I'll do, the next step will be I'll start the brown down here, and I'll just work my way around, work up until I get up to about here, and then I'll start kind of extending that line and coming around, just kind of working my way up the mask. I'm not going to glue, I probably won't glue anything. I'll probably do a lot of punching in this area here, but I'll glue this entire, probably from here, and then I'll glue up here too. I'll try to get it pretty close to the lip. A couple things that I wanted to mention. One important thing is because the nose has been painted with a matting agent to take the gloss out of the nose. So it's that way on both the Tarfle and the Chewy masks. Done through a painstaking airbrushing silicone paint, and it's a very difficult process in my opinion. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to use too much glue when you're gluing hair on right here in this area. You want to just do a very minor amount of glue because you don't want that glue smeared. You can see the Silpoxy has a glossiness to it, and if I was to smear that onto the nose, then I'd end up with a glossy area here on the nose. Now, if you do that, wipe it off right away because you don't want part of your nose being glossy and part of your nose being matte. But you can see even on all the Tarfles, it's some level of a matte finish on all the noses, so you don't want part of it being glossy. So just be careful, use very minimal amounts of Silpoxy right here. And as you get close to the eyes too, you don't want to turn this matte finish into a glossy finish. It's much less concerning around the eyes because a lot of creatures have, more of a glossy look around the eyes. But just try to use a little less glue around there so that you're not changing that matte finish. Other thing too is these little tailings. As I was holding, I was sort of using one hand to hold down the hair as I just sort of gently petted that hair down into the glue. And so what happens is some of this stuff starts lifting up on the endings and stuff, and you can see it's not quite cured yet, but I'll just go in with some scissors and just kind of cut off those little ends that are sticking up before I start punching any brown around there. But I will do a little tiny bit of, I'll With Chewy, I'll glue some brown streaks just kind of inside of this. But most of the brow from here forward is going to be punched just after I'm done with those just brown streaks that I glue in, and I'll show a video of how I do that. Most of the gluing's done. The bulk that's left here is just this under chin part. That'll be done with the brown hair. So, all right. And then one last thing I wanted to mention too was the amount of hair I've used. I used about 2.5 bags. Not quite as much hair as what I had thought. Again, I've talked about the volume of this particular hair I'm using. I think if you plan on 3 bags, 3 solid bags, 4 if you really want to be safe to get the gray done on Chewy, then I think you'll be in really good shape, and you'll probably have some leftover hair. I do like having leftover hair just in case some falls out or you decide you want to go in and replace it. And it can be really tough sometimes to match the hair you've got, or in this case, this is that Cyberglox dark gunmetal gray, which is really hard to come by. It's sort of pre-blended hair with the darker number 4 streaks in it, and the silvery gray stuff too. So it's hard to find, so it's nice to be able to have something to go in and match it. And if I can, I like when people buy a mask from me, I try to send a little bit of extra hair just so they have something to do some repair work with at some point if it's ever needed. Of course, I make the mask so that hopefully it never needs repair, but depending on how much you use it and how much abuse it takes, it's just a good idea to throw that stuff in if I can. I guess I could always have people just send it back to me and then I could do it, but just kind of a nice option to have. So anyway, if you're thinking about, how much hair you're going to need for this, I would say 3 to 4 bags still. Although in this particular mask, it seemed like I went through 2.5. Yeah, all right.